All right. So, I gotta say, this is a tough one. I think out of the episodes I've done so far, this one's gonna be a tough one because I honestly have nothing to talk about. And I mean nothing. Uh, I really don't know how I'm gonna get through this, like do an hour of this. Um, and it's on this weird time thing that I can't even tell what time it is on this thing. Like, so let me just put the timer on instead. Uh, I normally have this recording program set so I can see the time clearly, but instead of giving me the time right now, it's showing me 75 bars. Yeah, so I've talked for 76 bars now. So I really don't know how much that's going to help me keeping track of a 1 hour recording. But it's okay. Well, I gotta say I'm kind of fucked because I have nothing to talk about. But it's okay because what's going to happen is if I really have nothing to talk about, I'll just look like a fool. And that way, anyone who listens, if they accidentally stumble upon this, they could just be like, wow, look at that jackass hitting record and having nothing worthwhile to say. Because, people enjoy seeing someone fall apart. It's like that classic thing of like, when you see someone fall apart or look like a fool, it makes you feel better about yourself, right? It's like, God, I'm not that stupid. I mean, I'm dumb, but I'm not that dumb. Look at that guy over there. So, if I can make you feel better about yourself, I guess I've done something good. These are tough. These are tough podcasts to record when you have nothing on your mind. I thought to myself, what it truly means to actually have nothing on your mind. I don't even understand it. How do you have nothing on your mind? Because I wanted to record another podcast. And I thought, well, I just kind of hit record. And I recorded the first two podcasts and everything went fine. So just do it again, Tony. But I think I've already peaked. So let's see. Maybe I can just recap. What did I talk? Oh yeah, so on the first podcast I talked about the universe and existence, which is like the same shit I always talk about. The second podcast I talked about the 4-day work week and universal basic income, which I actually think is it's a very important thing to talk about and to understand. And I don't know where to lead off from that, because that sort of is, the end of it all. What I talked about in that episode is pretty much leading into the next 20 to 50 years on Earth. Maybe I can talk about like conspiracy theories and aliens and Roswell UFO crash. And maybe I can talk about like alien conspiracy. Actually, you know what? I know what I can talk about. I was actually, I'll talk about this kind of stuff, but I was actually listening to, there's like this, what's it called? Let me look for it. I was listening to this show that I sometimes listen to that's on, I think the guy's name is Jimmy Church, and he has this show that he talks about conspiracy theory. Oh, Fade to Black. Yeah, he talks about aliens and conspiracy theories and secret government programs. Yeah, Fade to Black radio show with Jimmy Church. One thing I like about Jimmy Church is that he's very nice and respectful to his guests. You know, he kind of just, he gets a lot of out there people on his show. You know, somebody will be like, yeah, I'm a time traveler, and I'm from the year 2000 whatever, right? And then he'll interview them, and he's not condescending to them. He's not like snarky. He doesn't have this like, he just talks to them normally. I really like that about him. Basically, I like that he's not a prick. You know, he's just like he talks to them, and you know, he lets them say what they want to say. Okay, you're a time traveler. Oh, really? You're from the year 2700. That's cool. And he talks to them, and that's it. And so I was listening to the episode last night. It was live, and it was this. He had on these guests, this woman and this man that were doing Ouija board sessions. So they called into his radio show, you know, the Fate to Black radio show, and Jimmy Church was talking to this man and this woman who were using a Ouija board, and they were just so basically Jimmy Church said, email us questions. So people emailed a whole bunch of questions, and then they asked the Ouija board all these different questions. And I remember, the reason I'm talking about it is I remember how obsessed I was with Ouija boards when I was younger. You know, it's it's kind of funny because, you know, in high school when people wanted to like go to like cool parties and, you know, like just do typical high school teenagery kind of shit, you know, go to cool parties and drink till you pass out and dance on the pool table. I was obsessed with Ouija boards, and I wanted to like communicate with spirits. So that's where my mind was at that age. And I used to have this Ouija board, and I remember sometimes I'd have some friends over. We'd hang out in my basement, and I'd be like, hey, let's do the Ouija board. And nobody really wanted to do it. They're like, Tony, what the hell's wrong with you? We don't want to do a Ouija board. But, you know, once in a while I would convince them to do it. And, you know, you do it, and then all of a sudden, I don't know, it was just always like a lot of gibberish. It really annoyed me that these spirits could not give you very good answers. I rarely ever got a satisfying answer. And this leads me to this radio show that I was listening to that's like, you know, Fade to Black with Jimmy Church. So they're doing these Ouija board questions. And again, they were so vague with these answers. They were asking them like, who built the pyramids and all this stuff. And then like they would always give these very vague answers that are almost like this puzzle, this cryptic puzzle. It's like, ooh, well, who built the pyramids? Well, you know, it was a mixture of different people. Okay, well, who exactly? It's like they just don't give clear, straight answers. And I sort of... They were trying to say that we can't give you the full straight answers because that's one of the big adventures of the human life. The idea that you guys have to find out the answers for yourself. That's what's fun. If you had all the answers, what would be the point? You know? And I mean, I guess that's kind of true with everything. We're fucking playing a game of let's forget. Let's be stupid so we can feel awesome when we learn again, right? That's what it seems like we're doing. I always wonder what the hell this human life is, you know? Because I sometimes get the feeling like we're just replaying the same fucking game over and over. The game of remembering and forgetting. And why? so we could re-experience everything new again. Because I think sometimes people don't truly understand how fucked up that would be to live forever and then never get to experience your first anything again, right? Because your first everything is really the most special in anything. Think about your first anything, right? And I try to compare your first to your 22nd. It's not the same. So it's almost like, that's why, like, when I talked about in that second episode how I'm a slightly shittier version of myself every year, it's because when you get older, you just get jaded too. You don't experience everything new anymore. Like, you don't get to experience music new for the first time. Like when you were in high school and you got to experience your favorite bands that you listened to. You got high listening to it. You just don't get that when you get older, because it's just, you get jaded with everything. So it's almost like we just have to keep hitting the reset button, and you just keep fucking doing this over and over and over and over again. You learn the information and then you fucking forget it all. Why? Just so you can redo it again, so it can feel new again. And I sometimes get this feeling of being trapped in existence forever. I know it sounds weird, but just really think about it. If that's it, and you just keep recycling like that, because just so you can feel new again, so you can feel a new everything again, right? Imagine, even if you didn't die, imagine if you were immortal. Let's say tomorrow they somehow they release this injection. You can inject yourself with this thing, and then you're immortal now. And you just live forever and ever. You know, things would eventually, you imagine how, it sounds exciting, but also imagine how sad that would be, realizing that you never get to have your first anythings anymore. Everything becomes so, you've done everything 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times. And it's just never the same as when you've experienced them for the first time. I think that's why also you have so much more imagination and creativity when you're young. Because everything seems more like magic, because you imagine so many things you haven't experienced yet. And that stimulates your brain in a way where you think, wow, like the potential is so infinite. And even you imagine the things that you could potentially experience, and then you're also living things for the first time. And it's just such an overload of so many things going on. Yeah, and that's what's magical about it. The newness of it, the first experience of it. So, let's say you're talking to the Ouija board and you're talking to these spirits and they don't want to give you any of the answers. I kind of get that. I mean, you can look at it one way to think, well, because it's all bullshit, Tony. What are you, stupid? Talking to Ouija boards? Really? What do you believe in magic? I always laugh at that when somebody says, oh, come on, Tony, what, you believe in magic? What, do you believe in Santa Claus too, right? Because they try to laugh oh, what, you believe in magical things? Or do you believe in unicorns? Here's what's funny. People think that the idea of magic or unicorns is ridiculous, right? Oh, what do you believe in, little leprechauns, right? But they don't laugh at the idea of just existence itself, right? It always makes me laugh at the idea that you can actually think anything within existence is any more nonsensical than actual existence itself, right? Because anything within existence is not even that magical. It's actually because if you went to another planet and you found out that there's these little unicorn looking creatures, oh yeah, they look kind of like horses, but they have horns. That's not that magical. It's yeah, here's a creature on this planet that kind of looks like a horse, and it has a cone-shaped horn on the fucking front of his head. Big fucking deal. That's nothing. But how about existence itself? That's nonsense, right? That's why I called that first episode "Just Is" will never make sense of the rational mind. Just is. Right? Because everything else is whatever. Anything that you think is magical. Ooh, what do you believe in? Magic? You believe in, people laugh at that. It's like, you live in magic right now. You live in nonsense. The ultimate magic is just the fact that you exist and the fact that anything exists. That's magic. So anything within existence cannot possibly be any more ridiculous or magical or nonsensical than existence itself. So basically anything that you mention that's within existence is really not that big of a deal. You think of like, oh, do purple elephants exist that can fly? Well, what are you stupid, Tony? That just sounds like nonsense. You really think that's nonsense? It's nothing. Name anything right now. Name any ridiculous thought you have. Be like, wouldn't it be stupid? Wouldn't it be impossible or crazy if like you visited some planet and some creature had 58 eyeballs and they were just like, whatever stupid thing you want to describe. That's nothing. That's not silly. That's not magical. Or you say, what if we discover some planet where these creatures shit out diamonds? That's not magic. That's not fantasy. That's nothing. That's no big deal. That's nothing. Compared to existence itself, that's nothing. So what's my point? My point is laughing at anyone's ridiculous idea is ridiculous. When you laugh at some, oh, really, you believe in Ouija boards, Tony? You believe in magic? How about fucking existence itself? That's the ultimate nonsensical magic. And you're telling me a Ouija board is too woo-woo and magical? How that's what's funny, because people don't truly, they exist in nonsense, and yet when you mention other nonsense, they find it hilarious. Like, Ouija board? Like, right, because Ouija board is just hilarious, right? Oh, really, Tony? You talk to magical spirits on Ouija boards? Meanwhile, they live in nonsense. It's like, but if you actually told them, hey, yeah, but how about your own existence and existence itself? You don't think that's a little silly? No, it's pretty normal. It's pretty typical shit. No, unicorns are silly. Existence is pretty cool. It's not nonsense at all, man. Just existing, you can't really call anything magical or nonsensical within existence. Because it can't be any more stupid and nonsensical than existence itself. Right? There is nothing in actual existence that you can come up with that's any more laughable than existence itself. So that game is really just kind of like, it's not really much of a game. It's not that interesting, But this whole idea of Ouija boards and not getting answers, talking to spirits, or even like when you meditate, just, what, fuck the Ouija board. Just imagine you meditating because you think, well, I'm an intellectual. I meditate. I think about higher concepts. I'm going to meditate and then I'm going to get some answers. What fucking kind of answers could you possibly get? Right? Because like I said, if the whole idea is we're here so we're stupid again, you're not going to get any answers, right? I mean, sure, you might get some abstract answer like, oh, I meditated and I felt like I was one with the universe and everything is one and it's magical. Exactly, that's beautiful, but that's still not going to give you any sort of practical answers to this life. Like what job should I have? What should I do? Where should I move? All the things, or like the fact that you don't really know anything. Because we really don't know anything. You're thrown on this planet, you're born, and you don't know shit. And then you spend the next 85 years of your life trying to figure out what the fuck any of this is. And the biggest joke of it all is the fact that you're trying to figure out nonsense. There's nothing to figure out. That's the biggest joke about existing. Just even the notion of trying to figure something out. That's why the people that I'm the most jealous about in this life are people who don't think at all. They're the best. People who just love to party and have fun. They're like, fuck it. Because there's no point in thinking about any of it. Because there's nothing to figure out. You just exist and you're living your life. There's really nothing to figure out. There's absolutely nothing to figure out. And yet you sit there thinking that you're an intellectual and you meditate and you're getting answers from the universe. There's no fucking answers. There's no useful answers to anything. It's like, oh, here we go. I'm meditating. Oh, wait, I'm getting communication from source, from all that is. Oh, here we go. I'm getting, I can hear a voice. The voice says, hi, Tony. Yeah, you exist. Enjoy yourself. That's it. You're really hoping to get some sort of like, Tony, you exist because you have a very special purpose. Your purpose is to do this. Or your purpose. And then somehow you think that like, there you go. I got the magical answer. My purpose is for this thing. And that's it. Then you kind of feel good about yourself, right? So in a way, all we're ever really doing is trying to manufacture some sort of purpose so we can feel good about the insanity of existing, right? Because without that purpose, you're really left thinking like, what the fuck is any of this? So then it's almost, finding purpose is almost like a defense mechanism for going insane. It's like laughing, right? I always tell people, you do realize like most of the times I'm just laughing and joking around. It's just my way of coping with the insanity of existing. That's all it is. It's just it's a defense mechanism for me going insane. And that's what finding meaning is too. We need to find some sort of meaning. That way we don't fucking go insane. And we find this meaning by meditating and thinking we got some answer from God or source or the universe. And the universe, dear Tony, your purpose is this. And you're like, yes, that is my purpose. Now I feel like it all makes sense. Or like, or when you have any sort of thing that you attach huge purpose to, like imagine if you just had kids. Imagine how beautiful that would be to all of a sudden have a kid. I imagine about that all the time. Like imagine how mind-blowing it would be to have kids. It would be mind-blowing. There's probably nothing in existence that would make you feel a higher sense of meaning and purpose than having kids, right? I mean, Jesus, they're kids. These things like magically came out of nowhere, kind of like you, and it blows your fucking mind. And then you have these kids that now you're responsible for. It's mind-blowing, right? But again, was that your purpose? Was that the purpose of existence? Existence just magically existed so we can have kids? Of course not. Existence just is. There is no ultimate meaning or purpose of it. But we do things within existence to give us purpose, because otherwise we feel empty. We feel like we're going to go crazy without any sort of meaning that we can attach to it. So like when you have kids, you probably feel like, well, I don't know if there's any ultimate meaning in any of this, but right now, in this second, I have an ultimate meaning because I have kids. And, that for sure, like I just imagine right now, like the way I'm talking and I'm making these podcasts, I always laugh at this notion that here I am making these podcasts and mumbling for an hour. I know that if I had kids, I probably wouldn't do any of this shit. Because it doesn't matter. The only reason I'm fucking probably doing these podcasts and making YouTube videos is because I don't have kids. That's it. Because if you have kids, or if you have something incredibly meaningful in your life, you're too busy self-absorbed in that thing to really be doing much of anything else. It's why bands suck when all the family members like become parents and have kids, and they don't have fucking time to, who the fuck has time to focus on music if you're a father? What kind of piece of shit human being can you possibly be to give birth to children and be such a piece of shit that you're still too self-absorbed with your music? Like, what kind of fucking asshole can you be? You have to be such a narcissistic, self-absorbed piece of shit to have kids and then still be just so self-absorbed with your music and your creativity. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You have to be such a narcissistic piece of shit to actually have children, but you're just so still busy, involved in your creativity and your music or your art. Like, are you fucking kidding me? If you have kids, that is your life. You have kids now, that's your fucking life. I'm not saying you can't do anything anymore, but it cannot possibly be the same as it was before. Because the way I'm doing these podcasts now is because I'm a self-absorbed piece of shit. That's why I'm doing these podcasts and these, YouTube channels, because I have nothing else going on. I don't have a family. Because if I had kids, can you imagine if I had kids who needed my attention? I'm like, oh, sorry there, buddy. I'm busy recording a podcast. No, I'm going to be fucking playing with my kid. I'm going to be giving my kid attention. Okay? I mean, so that's what happens, because these kids that you have, I'm sure they create such a meaning for your life that it becomes your life, because we need meaning. Like we desperately need some sort of meaning to things to give us any sort of sense of purpose, have some meaning now. Because without any meaning, you literally feel like you're just floating around in infinity, like in a void of nothingness, and you're thinking, what the fuck is any of this? You just keep redoing this shit over and over again for all of eternity. That's why it's probably beautiful to be an atheist and believe in the idea that you're magically born once and then you're gone for all of existence. That must be peaceful. That must be incredibly peaceful. Because the idea of thinking that you're this eternal consciousness that just lives on forever and you just keep doing this shit over and over and over again, and each time you do it again and again, it's like you have to find some sort of purpose and meaning in it. Oh my God. It's craziness. Now you might think, oh, Tony, but you're just thinking of it in a really negative, pessimistic way. No, it's just like the idea is you exist and ultimately there is no meaning in it. And you have to manufacture some sort of meaning. Now, you can call that pessimistic. You can call that whatever you want. But it just is what it is. Kind of like existence. Existence just is. It doesn't need you to define it. Like, you can define existence as magical or beautiful or shitty. But it just is. Your definition of it means nothing. It just is. It's just there. It doesn't need you to define it in any sort of way, because it means nothing for you to define it in any sort of way. I can say anything I want about existence right now, but it ultimately doesn't mean anything. Existence just is. It doesn't need us to validate it in any sort of way. So you exist, which is why I called that term, so you exist. I have a YouTube channel called So You Exist. So I have these podcasts that I do. So this is like the Tony's Dark Roast Talk podcast, which, by the way, I mentioned before. The whole Tony's Dark Roast Talk, it is so unoriginal. It's like, I can't believe how unoriginal it is. I'm like so embarrassed and ashamed of myself for calling it Tony's Dark Roast Talk, because I thought I was actually clever, because my thing is like, I love waking up in the morning, making my dark roast coffee. And I thought, let me just do these podcasts, these 1 hour long podcasts to challenge myself, where I make my coffee in the morning, I hit record, and I just challenge myself to talk for an hour. That sounds like a really cool thing to do. So I'm like, what do I call it? And I thought, dark roast. Ooh, that sounds cool. So then I call it Tony's Dark Roast Talk. And then I find out that there's actually a couple of different things with that dark roast title, and I was just like, oh, Jesus Christ, Tony, Jesus Christ, are you unoriginal? Yeah, so the term dark roast, you know, I saw it in a couple of different YouTube or podcast names. I mean, obviously the name Tony's Dark Roast Talk is not taken, but just the words dark roast and some other sort of words with they've been used. And it's so funny because they all have the same fucking picture. Every single one has a picture of a coffee cup with a dark roast coffee. It's just horrible. And that's what my picture has too, you know. It's a cup of dark roast coffee, and I put a microphone beside the cup of coffee, you know, the coffee, the microphone. God, it's unoriginal. It's one of my most embarrassing, unoriginal ideas I've ever had in my life. And the reason I kept it is because I first of all, I just wanted to humiliate myself, to show myself. It's good to just humble yourself sometimes when you think, oh yeah, Tony, you're so creative. Wow. It's good to just bring some humility into your life, you know? So I kept it, one, just to sort of humble me and meant to like bring me down a notch. To be like, look, Tony, look how fucking unoriginal you are. Tony's Dark Roast Talk. Did you really think the term dark roast was really that cool and original? Really? What's weird is that I actually searched the term. I typed in Tony's Dark Roast Talk on Google and on the podcast fucking app. Nothing showed up. So I do my artwork. I do my fucking artwork for it. I get this picture done and everything. And then a couple of days later, I thought to myself, let me try searching for it again. And then all of a sudden, a couple of results show up. I go, what the fuck is this? When I originally searched for anything with the word dark roast in it, if I had found even one result, I would have not fucking done it. I don't know why no results came up that day, and then a couple of days later, a couple of random results came up. No idea why, but again, probably just to bring some humility into my life, to bring me down a notch, you know, to show me that how much of an unoriginal dumbass I can still be sometimes, you know. Tony's Dark Roast Talk. I can't believe it. I swear to God. The worst part was the fact that every single fucking podcast or YouTube channel had the fucking cup of coffee as their picture. Unfucking believable. Embarrassing. One of my most unoriginal things I've ever done in my entire life. And I'm going to have to live with it because I'm not changing it. So, yeah, existence always fucking goes back to existence. It's weird. Like I said, if you don't find something that you attach some sort of goddamn meaning to, it literally feels like you're just trapped in existence. Sometimes I literally wake up in the morning and I have this thought of, oh my God, I'm just fucking trapped in this thing forever. Now that sounds kind of, dark. By the way, that's another reason why I like the term dark roast, because it sounds kind of like dark, edgy. It kind of sounds like I'm talking about dark subjects, and I get kind of moody and dark sometimes. I thought, oh, that's real fucking clever. Yeah, good one, Tony. Real fucking original. But yeah, so I sometimes wake up in the morning and I literally feel like I'm trapped in existence. And like I said, I bet you if I had some sort of thing that I attached some meaning to, I would forget about that a bit. Like I said, that's why I think like probably having kids. Because if I had kids, I would have to be such a fucking piece of shit to have kids and then wake up in the morning and think, God, I feel like I'm trapped in existence. You would have to be such a piece of shit. Because if I had kids, the second I'd wake up in the morning, I would be happy because I get to see my kids again. I imagine the idea of like sleeping and then, like on a Saturday and then like the kids like come jump in your bed and they wake you up. And then you get to see your silly little kid. That's probably amazing. There's no possible way I would say, oh God, I feel like I'm trapped in existence. And the only reason I feel that now is, like I said, because I haven't attached any real meaning to anything. And what's fucked up is that I know that even the fucking kids that you have, ultimately, it's not like that's the ultimate meaning of existence. But I know for sure that having kids or having anything that you attach that sort of meaning to is so powerful that at least it gives you the privilege and a gift to make you forget about this idea of being trapped in existence forever. Because when you literally feel like you've attached no meaning to any of it, it literally feels like you're just fucking trapped in existence forever. And I don't think there's any way around it other than just creating moments of significance that give you some sort of meaning. There's no way around it. Like, you have to find some sort of meaning in something, you know? Like, this is what I do. Like, maybe somebody gets that meaning from their career or something. Maybe somebody has like a really, I don't know, some sort of stimulating career that gives them some sort of feeling of meaning, you know? So I'm not saying like it has to be kids. You can find meaning in a million other things. It's just that, like, I'm sure kids are it's probably the most intense form, because I just can't imagine what else would give you that sort of level of meaning. Other than maybe like if you were somebody who saved lives. You're somebody who somebody who saved lives, literally somebody who literally saved people's lives or helped people in some sort of really powerful, significant way. I'm sure that probably is the same sort of level of meaning that you can maybe give yourself. All I know for sure is that if you don't feel that, man, can existence feel like you're just like floating in this void of nothingness. And it makes me laugh because I know that all of it is manufactured meaning, that ultimately it's all meaningless, because how could it be anything other than meaningless? Because like I mentioned before in the other episode, how could there possibly be any sort of actual meaning? Because who would get to decide that meaning, right? And I'm not going to go on about it at all, but if you're really curious to have a in-depth explanation of how there can't possibly be any sort of meaning, because I would say go back and listen to the other episodes, because I rant about it for literally the whole hour. But yeah, so here I am, here I am doing these podcasts because literally I have nothing else of significance to do that gives me any sort of meaning. And I'm still in that, I guess you can still say I'm still in that self-absorbed state, because since I have nothing else that's more meaningful, I'm still in that state of creating. When I was younger, music, I created music a lot, I got a lot of my sort of quote unquote significance or meaning through writing songs, writing music. And the sort of satisfaction I got from creating songs and creating music when I was younger, I'm kind of getting that now doing this, like YouTube videos and podcasts. It's my new way of sort of releasing some of that, because really with music, it was just releasing my thoughts too, and energy, lyrics, thoughts, ideas. You write them down, you write some songs around them. This is the same shit, I have some thoughts, some energy in me, and I release it. Before I used to release it through music. Now I'm releasing it through YouTube channels and podcasts, but it's the same shit, right? And like I said, if I probably had something more meaningful to do, like, I don't know, take care of some kids or save the world, I probably wouldn't be doing this. Because like I said, if you have kids and you're busy like doing this shit that I'm doing, what the fuck is wrong with you? And don't get me wrong, like I'm sure you can balance the two. I'm not saying that if you have kids and you also have a successful podcast that you're a piece of shit father. You can do both. Okay? You really got to, it's so sad that you really have to like in today's world, you really have to be super clear about what you said, because somebody will take it out of context and they'll say, hey, did you hear that Tony guy with that fucking stupid Dark Roast Talk podcast? He said that if you have a podcast and you have a family, you're a piece of shit. That you could only have one and you can't have both. Because if you have a podcast, then you're neglecting your children. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that generally speaking, if I had kids, I'd probably be doing a lot less 1 hour podcasts with myself. That's all I'm saying, right? And I would say, I guess I should say I would hope that I'd be doing less podcasts, because like I said, ideally I'd probably want to spend more time with my kids. You know? I think it'd be really hard to have a kid who wants to spend time with me saying, nah man, I got a podcast to do. Maybe next time. Now, of course, if you're somebody super successful and you make a living doing it, I'm sure once in a while you do have to probably ignore your kid and be like, hey man, I got to go to work. I record podcasts and that puts food on our tables and it affords us the opportunity to have a house or an apartment and live. I understand that. Just, generally speaking, you would hope that somebody pays enough attention to their kids, because I laugh at myself when I say this, because I understand that when you don't have a family, it's really all about you. You're really self-absorbed about you, I'm at that age now where a lot of my friends have kids now and they have families, and I can see how much it's changed them as a person. I know people that I've known since like high school that were incredibly self-absorbed with themselves, and I saw how different they were when they had kids. They were better people because they were less narcissistic, less about themselves, and they can, it balanced them out. Now, ironically, so that's another ironic point. Balance doesn't work well with creativity and art. You don't want balance. That's why dads make horse shit music. That's why you don't want dad bands. Dad bands suck. Every fucking band I ever listened to that became dads, their music was horse shit. Because you don't want a balanced, nice person writing art or creating art. It just doesn't work good. It's fucking boring. It just doesn't work. You have to be sort of a self-absorbed asshole to write really good music. Why do you think John Lennon was so good? Because from all accounts, he kind of was a self-absorbed asshole. And you're probably wondering, how dare you, Tony? I'm a huge John Lennon fan. And I don't want to talk ill of the dead. I'm just saying from what I've heard, from all the accounts. I don't know John. John Lennon might have been the sweetest, warmest, loving guy in the world. But from all accounts, that what I've heard was that, I've heard interviews from like his first kid. Who was his first kid? Was Julian Lennon his first kid? I forget which the kid he had with his first wife. I don't know, man. From all the interviews I've seen, he feels like he was kind of neglected as a kid, Well, because his dad was like writing music and he moved on with his life doing other shit. I don't know the fucking story. But what I'm saying is, I bet you if like John Lennon at that time when he had his first kid, he just spent all his time with that kid, he probably wouldn't have written any more music. Or at least not as much as he did. That's my whole point. My point is, he still wrote a lot of music, so that's why I think people see him as this guy who's kind of like, oh, well, he kind of like, neglected his first kid because, he didn't spend enough time with them. I don't know what the true story behind any of it is. Okay, I'm not a John Lennon historian, so but it just seems like once you have kids, you're either spending a lot of time with your kids, and if you do that, your music's going to suffer. That's all I'm trying to say. That's literally all I'm trying to say. And from all accounts, I heard that John Lennon still wrote a lot of music, so I'm guessing one of them had to suffer, right? Because you can't spend all your time writing music and spend all your time with your kid too, right? Because before your kids, if you're obsessed with your music, you're spending most of your time with your music. And then when you have a kid, you're either, like what? Spending half the amount? So even if you spend half the amount playing music because you're spending the other half with your kid, that's basically half of your existence. You're not focusing on music anymore. So ultimately, it's going to suffer at some point. The amount of stories I hear that make me laugh about, like, you know, all these bands, you know, when I was in high school, I was really heavily influenced by the whole Seattle scene when I was in high school, right? And I loved these bands, and they wrote these badass songs, and these albums were awesome. And then I hear interviews with them now, and it's like, so how do you write music now? And they're like, well, you know, when my kids, like, you know, when I have 10 minutes alone where I'll just like pick up the notepad really quickly and just like sort of jot out a couple of chords, and that's a song. So basically now they write their songs when they have 10 minutes of free time when their kid's not around. That's it. And then when I hear stories of how they used to write music, it would be like, so how did you write this album? Well, you know, what I did was, I locked myself in this cabin in the woods for 3 months, and I was contemplating life, and I kept working on these lyrics, and they weren't right, so I just kept working on them every night, and I was sitting there alone contemplating for months in a cabin. And it's like, holy shit. Well, yeah, no wonder the albums back then were awesome and your albums now are horseshit. Obviously. So that's what my point. Do you see what I'm trying to say? That's my fucking point. When you have kids, even if you still do write music, it's not going to be the same. Because to get that deep, with art, it's basically like, how deep can you go? That really is. When you think about the best art, you look at it and think, God damn, where the fuck did that person go when they did this? You know? That's what you really think. Whether it's a great song or whether it's a great painting, you think, what the fuck? Where did this guy have to go to create this? Because you know they went somewhere. You know they went somewhere deep with that. It's like, how did you create this? Well, what we did is that as a band, we rented this house and we lived there together for like 9 months. Just us in this house, and all we did is play music every day. And you think, oh yeah, of course, no wonder this album's awesome. You know, it's really as simple as that. When you're younger and you're self-absorbed with yourself, and it's all about like, what can I do? What can I create? How awesome can I be? What's my potential? You just fantasize about how good you can be, how much you can give, how deep you can go to create this work of art. It's all about you and your creation. Of course, you're gonna like go to a deeper place to create art. And then of course, if you have some other things going on, like a family or something else, that's going to be mostly gone. If it's not mostly gone, at least like a large part of it is going to be gone. And then what you do is you die, and then you come back and you forget everything again, right? You become dumb again. Why? So you can experience the new again. So that's how I started this podcast, with that notion of you just have to fucking forget it all and do it all again, right? Because even if like you were this really edgy creative artist and you're all self-absorbed, imagine if you never had a family and all you did is create this amazing art your entire life. You're going to get to a point where you just fucking get bored of doing it. After you've written your 5,000th song. How do you say 5,000th song? Is that even a fucking word? After you've written 5,000 songs, you're going to probably get to a point where like, it's not that exciting anymore. You know, I remember when I wrote my first batch of songs when I was a teenager, I pick up the guitar. It's exciting. When you write your first batch of songs, it's like existence. It's fucking magic. It's nonsense. When you write your first batch of songs, It is literally nonsensical magic. That's all it is. It's literally nonsensical magic, because you're like, where the fuck did this come from? How is it possible that I just created something? You just basically you put something in existence that wasn't there. That's fucking magic. Your head is blown. Now just doing that over and over again, eventually a bit of that magic is going to wear off. It's just natural. So then you die and you come back and you forget everything so you can re-experience the magic again. I think that's, because we always have the idea, well, no, you come back, you reincarnate. The idea of reincarnations, because so you can clear your karma and you can keep growing, and so you become enlightened. Really? To become enlightened for what fucking reason? We're obsessed with this idea of becoming enlightened. Like, what's the end game in becoming enlightened? Eventually, everything's going to be reset, right? This idea, we have this fascination with enlightenment. Like, now I've reached enlightenment. I'm in the state of nirvana. Nirvana, what the fuck? Other than a fucking cool rock band, what the fuck is the point of nirvana? Oh, I've reached nirvana. I'm in bliss right now. I don't give a shit about anything anymore. I've let go of all attachments, and I'm just fucking free, and I'm in bliss. And then what? What do? Just fucking hang out in bliss for all of eternity? It's like the fucking notion of heaven. It's the most nonsensical, stupid thing you've ever heard. When you're a kid, I remember when I was a kid and I heard heaven. It's so fucking stupid. Yeah, you die and you go to heaven and you're just in bliss for all of eternity. That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Right? Because eventually you're going to have to hit the reset button and restart, right? Who the fuck wants to be in bliss for all of eternity? The whole point to anything is contrast. It's like a fucking painting that's all white or all black. What the fuck is that? If I came to you and I said, look, I just painted a beautiful painting. It's just white. Nothing else. What does that? It's just white. It's bliss. What's black? Oh, it's just darkness. They're both fucking nonsense, right? It's the only way you can experience anything of any interest is through the contrast, right? Everything is relative. Everything is about perspective. Everything is about contrast. That's the only way. It's like 1 and a 0. A 1 is nothing, a 0 is nothing. It's the contrast between the 1s and 0s. You see that same pattern in everything. Why? Because without that contrast, it's nothing. It's literally nothing. It's nothing. Computer code 1, 0, off, on, dark, light. You need both. You need the combination of both. Otherwise, it's nothing. If the data just read 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, or 1, 1, 1, 1, it would fucking mean nothing. So you need both. So that's the play of existence. You need both. Without both, there's nothing. So understanding the simple basics of that, you kind of come to realize, so you just fucking keep redoing it, right? Because it's not like there's some ultimate enlightenment that you get to. Now all of a sudden, it's just bliss forever. Because bliss forever is not bliss anymore. It's just nothingness. You need that constant contrast of the bliss and the horseshit, right? That's the only way you have any sort of reasonable existence, is the combination of bliss and horseshit. And then you take that bliss and you blend it in with some horse shit, and then you have some sort of life. That's it. And then you live that life, and then after you live that life and you experience things, you kind of have to hit the reset button so you can re-experience them. Because that is the greatest gift, right? If you exist, the greatest gift would be to get to re-experience everything new again, right? The same thing if you were this immortal creature. The biggest fantasy of an immortal creature who's lived for millions of years would probably be just to hit the reset button and get to re-experience everything for the first time again. Right? There's no bigger magic than getting to re-experience things again for the first time. And when you realize that, you think, oh my God. So that's it. There is existence for you. You exist for all of eternity, and you just keep fucking coming back and doing it over and over and over and over again. Why? Because there's nothing else to do. Because we want to attach some meaning to it. If I tell you all existence is you exist, and you just keep fucking doing this over and over and over again, you say, no, Tony, that can't be. There's got to be a bigger ultimate meaning to that, where we keep doing it, but then we evolve and we ascend and then we become enlightened. Like I said, what's the fucking end game of enlightenment? To live in bliss forever? That's nonsense. Living in a state of bliss and peace and happiness forever is nothingness. Again, it's 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. It's nonsense. So the only game is to have the mixture of both. And if that's the case, the end game is not enlightenment. There is no fucking end game. You can tell yourself the end game is enlightenment, just like you can have kids, because what that does, it gives you some sort of fucking meaning. You know, it's like sprinkling some like happiness sprinkles on top of you. You know, it's gonna like get you through the day. You know, it's gonna give you some meaning, and we love that. We need that. So if you think that somehow you just keep reincarnating, having these lies, so we could eventually become enlightened and reach the state of nirvana, you can tell yourself that. But like I said, what the fuck's the end game of nirvana and enlightenment? Just live in bliss forever? Every fucking time I call you, in a million years I call you, what's going on, man? I'm just in bliss. Always in bliss. Not doing much of anything, just always in bliss. That's just 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. It's nothingness. Right? It's just all nothingness. So what am I doing in this life again? Well, I've come back again to experience some new things. I'm making podcasts. I'm creating really super unoriginal titles like Tony's Dark Roast Talk. How long have I talked for? I've talked for 57 minutes. So for the next 3 minutes, I'm just going to sort of wind down the podcast, because the goal is always to go to an hour. Wow. It's weird how, like, you start the podcast, and I honestly thought I was going to be fucked this time. I thought there's no way in hell I'm going to be able to fill up an hour, because when I hit record, I had nothing that I wanted to say. Absolutely nothing. Zero. And now I feel complete. Now I feel like I have some meaning. And that's all you need. You feel like, hey, I did something for today. I recorded this podcast, and it gave me a little bit of meaning. You know, this gave me just enough meaning to get through the day, so I can wake up and live another day. And that's all you really need. You just need something to get you through the day. And this podcast was enough of something that I feel like, hey, there you go. I released a bit of my thoughts and creativity out into the world. You know, that's all you really need. Something to get you through the day. Right now, I'm just kind of like rambling because I just want to get to the 1 hour mark. You know, that's basically all I'm doing. I'm actually kind of exhausted after that 1 hour podcast. Jesus Christ. Sometimes talking for 1 hour is maybe a little too much, but it's good. You know, I can't make this the 45-minute podcast all of a sudden. 1 hour, that's the goal. Still rambling. Got another minute to fill up. You know, for the last minute, I'll just say that doing YouTube videos and doing this podcast has been a very, I don't know, it's been a very interesting experience. I'll say that. There's just it's kind of weird because I just sometimes think like there's so many YouTube channels and so many podcasts and so much stuff for people to consume. You sometimes wonder, like, the world doesn't need your YouTube channel, your podcast, Tony, and they don't. So ultimately, we're really just doing this for ourselves. And I have to sort of keep reminding myself that I'm just kind of doing this for myself, because if you're just thinking about like, oh, what's the point of doing this? It's not like anyone's gonna listen. Yeah, that's kind of a shitty way to look at it, right? So self therapy, I guess, or just a way to express myself. But yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's weird recording yourself for an hour because it seems so obnoxious and self-indulgent. Like I kind of, it's weird because I kind of feel like an idiot for doing it, but at the same time feels good to do it because it's like one of my only ways to really let out this energy. Like I said, when I was younger, I used to let it out through music more. I wrote a lot of songs and stuff, but like I said, you just get jaded after that. You write a whole bunch of songs and afterwards, like, it's not as exciting anymore. So now I'm doing this. I'm releasing a podcast that no one listens to, and it feels incredibly self-indulgent and pretentious and obnoxious to record them. But here I am doing them. And, well, it's been over an hour, so now I can stop being pretentious and self-indulgent, and I can hit stop, and I can end the podcast. How about that? So I guess until the next one, everyone have a really great day, and I'll leave it at that. So take care, guys. Bye.